Hi, everybody. Mark Victor Hansen here, and I want to tell you today you should sit back, fasten your seatbelt, and get ready because you're about to hear from one of the guys that really knows how to think. My dear friend Steve Chater is an entrepreneur. He's a businessman. He's a real estate man. Now he's an author of a book I predict will be a bestseller. Even the cover, which you'll see in just 1 second, Press will put it up, will entreat you into welcoming you to sit in your favorite chair and read your book. Steve Chater, how are you doing today?
Hey, Mark, it's a great day today, and I'm doing well. Thank you.
I mean, both of us are here in lovely Arizona, and it happens to be beautiful and sunny, and we've got great rain, so it's blissfully growing like I think your book sales are going to do. So
this
tell
is
us
called Chamber of Commerce weather.
That's it. Yes, it sells people on coming to Arizona, which makes our roads packed. So what caused you to write this great book?
That's a great question, Mark. So I'm going to try and take a long answer and make it short. But the gist of my career has been helping people buy and sell real estate. I've been doing that for almost 50 years. When about 27 years ago, I met Gary Keller and got in, and through a whole series of events, I was invited to become an instructor with Keller Williams University. So let me go back just a second on Keller Williams and talk about what their mission is and how I was a part of that mission. But the mission for the company at the time was to build careers worth having, which is what I was trying to do, build businesses worth owning, which is what I was trying to do, and lives worth living. And one of my sales trainers at the very beginning of real estate, when I got in the business, basically said that if you want to be successful, you need to eat, drink, and sleep real estate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In other words, it's an all-in commitment. You've got to make that work. And so I did what I was told. And what I found was that my life was so far out of balance by focusing on that one thing that I wanted, that I wasn't living a life worth living. And so I had a conversation with Gary Keller, and I said, Gary, you've created us. You've given us this environment to be highly successful in the real estate business. What are you going to do with us? And his answer to me was, I don't have a specific plan, but just take what you've learned and pay it forward. So I did that as a member of the faculty. I taught people all over the country how to be successful in business, and also leadership. And that whole concept of leadership, quite frankly, to me was a little bit foreign when I first started, because I thought that my role in my life was to serve people, to help them buy real estate, sell real estate, invest in real estate. And frankly, I've helped thousands and thousands of people do that. Leadership was foreign to me. And so it was one of the things that I learned. And so when we talk about my book, the title is Made for More, but the tagline is Leading a Life Well Lived. And that leadership is, that's the important word right there.
Well, let's define leadership. I know I'm going aside, but what is your definition of leadership?
Well, my definition of leadership is knowing what you want and getting clear on what the mission is, what the purpose is. And in this context, it's the purpose for your life. Getting clear on what your vision would be. So what does it look like when you're actually successful? If we think about, if we think about somebody running a race, the vision is crossing the finish line and feeling that, breaking the ribbon with their chest. So the purpose was to win. The vision, the feeling was clear. And when you have clarity on that, so leadership is about clarity on the purpose, the vision, and also clarity on the values and the rules that you need in order to be successful.
I want to comment on all those, but I need to go way back. For those of you who don't know, Gary Keller attended one of my seminars long ago, and I was saying you got to think bigger than you ever thought you could think. And Gary started Keller Williams because of that. And then Joe Williams, we're going to be doing his biography here in a short time. So I am in love with this company. You guys are now the biggest real estate company in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's true.
And, and part of it is your great training. So your book centers around 4 big ideas. Tell me what those ideas are, if you would, please.
Sure, absolutely. So the first idea is that that life includes 5 separate but interconnected areas. And those are spiritual, personal, family, financial, and community. Those 5 areas are lives. And they're all separate parts of our lives. They're all interconnected. So if we believe that's true, and frankly, the hundreds of people that I've shared that with have agreed that, yeah, those 5 areas. If they wanted to add something, you say, well, what about health? Well, that's on the personal side. So if you believe that's true, that life includes those 5 areas: spiritual, personal, family, financial, and community, then the next idea that we talk about is the abundant life. In other words, the ideal life would be abundance. The ideal life would be abundance in each one of those areas. And frankly, Mark, I think about those areas as circles, because a circle can be expanded or a circle can contract. There's no boundary to a circle. So the 5 circles of life. So the first one is there's 5 circles. The second idea is that that the ideal life would be abundance in each one of those circles. The third idea is that the most important thing in each one of those areas, in each one of those circles, is relationships. So spiritual, for example, in my world, I believe it's my relationship to my Creator. Other people, it's other relationships. It's in mine too. It's who's your mentor? Who are your coaches? Who are the people that are teaching you to think bigger? Just like you said, you were talking with Gary and challenging him to think bigger. And then the fourth idea is that if abundance is the goal, the ideal life, abundance requires intentional growth. And that's where the leadership comes in, the intentionality, saying I'm growing in this direction on purpose.
So I need you to do a definition of abundance, but let me just say that from a spiritual point of view, you and I know John 10:10, I've come, you might have life and have more abundantly. So
Right.
Tell us your definition of abundance, if you would, please, kind sir.
Well, so abundance as I've been teaching and talking with people about this, they tend to think that abundance is always having more. Excuse me. And so I believe that abundance is an attitude. Abundance is a thought process. Abundance is, and you can be in a scarcity thought process or an abundant process. And those, that's on a continuum in my mind. It goes all the way from scarcity to abundance. So my definition of abundance is I'm grateful for what I have. And it's that mindset to say, I'm grateful for what I have. I want to be in gratitude for the abundance that I have. But then it's like, oh, but there's more. And so when we say made for more, abundance means I'm grateful for what I have. I'm not lacking, but there's more, and I want to go for more.
Talk about the more in each one of the circles, if you would, please, and also how they interconnect, if you would, a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, so if I had abundance spiritually, it would mean to me that I have abundance of love. I have abundance of joy in my life. I have abundance of peace in my life, tranquility. So that perspective, that thought process spiritually would be abundant. Personally, I would have an abundance of health. For me personally, it's an abundance of intentional growth. I'm growing personally. I'm growing as an individual. There's some people have this thought process where they say, if I have what you had, then I could do what you do and I could be like you. It's exactly the opposite, isn't it? It's if I could If I could be or think or like you, then I could do what you do, and then I could have what you have. It's exactly the opposite of what many people say. So abundance personally would be for me, about that growth. Abundance of family, it's an abundance of time spent with the people that you love. Last night I got to go out to dinner with my kids. And, even today, I got this feeling of inner satisfaction of the joy that we spent that time together last night. Abundance financially. And here's where my definition of abundance hits, because it's real easy to think about what I don't have and covet or want what I don't have. So if I've got an attitude of gratefulness, an attitude of gratitude, but I know that there's more. I think if we're gifted with the ability to make money, to build finances, then we're also gifted with the responsibility to do that, but not just for ourselves. We're responsible to do that for others. So that's generosity. And to me, gratitude, for example, gratitude's internal. It's I am grateful for, and I am, and I am, and I am glad that I have this, and I am all. Those are all internal. Generosity is the outward expression of the gratitude that we have, and it's blessing others. So then in community, community for me is really an abundance of good relationships with the people that you do life with, the people that you work with, the people that are in your community, the people that you do business with, the people that you're in clubs, organizations, churches with. And so that abundance, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have lots and lots and lots of relationships. Abundance can be both deep and wide. And so some of the relationships, having an abundance of relationships with people where you have real conversations, not just deal conversations, all of those things come together, each one of those areas. But it's all centered around how you think, isn't it? If you're thinking scarcity or you're thinking abundance, then it affects how you view every one of those areas there. So I have a graphic, and that's where the spiritual circle is, right in the middle, because it's a thought is a spiritual transaction. Can't see it, can't touch it, can't taste it, you can't feel it, but it has physical ramifications.
That's quantum entanglement at its highest and best. Well stated, sir, so everyone can understand. Talk about the abundance of spirit and hanging out with the right people and all that.
Mark, one of my favorite things that I tell people is that you are perfectly positioned to experience the results that you're currently experiencing in life in every one of those areas. And we
forgive me for laughing, but most people would say, man, if you had it as bad as I do, Steve, you wouldn't be saying that.
Well, maybe so. But I believe that you're perfectly positioned to experience what you're currently experiencing based on three things. And the first one is how you think. And that's the spiritual transaction. Again, scarcity, abundance, and how you think. The second part of your perfect positioning to achieve your current results is the environment that you either create or allow around you. And that's important. Is it positive? Is it uplifting? And being purposeful and intentional about that. And then the third one is the people that you associate and the books that you read,
right?
Or the movies you watch, or the podcasts you listen to. So all of those things, quite frankly, comprise what we call our comfort zone.
Well said.
Until we get out of that comfort zone, we're not growing.
Because the people are listening so intently, I can hear them already. I'm just imagining everyone listening to us. Tell me about let's only talk about how you think abundantly to become abundant. That's the point.
How you think abundantly. Well, first of all, I think you have to believe that there is more. and you have to believe that it's capable for you. So, Mark, I'm a Christian, and I believe that God created each one of us, and He created each one of us with gifts and abilities, and that when we lean into those gifts and abilities is when we're the happiest and the most productive.
I agree with all that.
So, I also believe that what we're taught is that we're created in God's image, which means that it means a number of things, but one of the things it means is that we have the ability to create. So whatever circumstance or thought process or paradigm or context that we have the ability to change it. So I think about the rest of creation. For example, a beaver can create a house, but they don't create 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and on multi-story with a basement.
Dang. First of all, I agree with John 1:28, which says you're made in the image and likeness of God. And I think that means that you got 3 jobs. One, be like God and create, because He created the whole universe. We're going to say 15 billion years ago. You and may or not like that number, but that's a number I believe is probably correct. Number 2, then if you're a creative, then you've got to challenge yourself, like you said, with a passionate purpose, because you've got to create so you can contribute, and you got to contribute so then you can be charitable, and you have so much abundance that you got excess. And the best metaphor I think I can give is that, Bob Schuller, one of my old ministers, used to say, anyone can count the seeds in an apple, but only God can count the apples in a seed. Well, I happen to know how many there are. One apple tree during a 100-year life creates 1 million apples. Did you know that?
I did not know that, but if you look at the cover of my book, you'll see an apple tree.
Bingo. That's why I'm bringing this up. So the point is that in one human lifetime, let's say a human lifetime is not 85 years like the statistics, because you're going to live past 100. You're tall, you're good looking, you're smart. Oh, I love this cover, by the way. And the point is, every one of us has got to be creating 100 apples. Now, you can't eat, 1 million apples. I know you're big and I'm tall. Both of us are big guys, but you and I can't eat 1 million apples even in a lifetime. I do believe you should have an apple a day, keep the doctor away. I'll buy that, pectin, all that good stuff. But the fact is, you would agree that each of us, if we use what you just said, your talent, your abilities, and your God-given
yes,
everything, skills, then you should be able to create 1 million apples during a human lifetime, one way or another. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's good. That's multiply, right?
Good, yeah.
And so, and we're looking for multiplication, not addition.
Yeah, well, the first demand of God is be fruitful, multiply, subdue. That just meant create the universe, don't screw it up, and we've screwed it up pretty well. Anyhow, so let's go forward. What is your definition of leadership, and how do you become effective as a leader?
Well, I talked about that a little bit a few minutes ago. So my definition of leadership, I actually got from John Maxwell.
I love John.
He's one of my mentors, and I became part of his organization and read all of his books. And he defines leadership as influence, which is a very simple way to say that you're impacting not only your own lives, but the lives of others and the people that are around you. And you have the ability to influence positively, negatively. You have the ability to influence and or create. So what does that require? That requires then, as a leader, you know what the purpose is. So again, if we're running the race, the purpose is to win the race. You understand your mission, your purpose. The second part is the vision. What does it look like when you're being successful? And again, we're crossing the finish line, breaking the tape with our chest. And then the celebration and the exaltation of achieving that mission. Well, then you have to understand then. So at Keller Williams, Gary taught me, it's called MVVBP. So M is the mission, V is the vision. What does it look like? And then what do you have to value in your life in order to achieve that? So one of the things that, I shared with you is that I was told to go 24/7, and I did. And I actually valued the business and my success in the business more than I did my time with my family. more than I did time in my community or with my friends and things like that. And so for a while, as Zig Ziglar used to call it, I had stinking thinking. And so mission, vision, values, and then what are the rules that you do business by? Okay. So for example, the name of my real estate company is called Integrity First. And so that's just one of the rules that you do business by, that the customer always comes first. The rule that you build your business by is succeeding through others, not just with yourself. And then finally, the P on it, MVVVP, the P is perspective. Where are you versus where you want to be? Where am I today versus what I want, which is my vision? And now I can create a plan, a path, a strategy, a way to move forward towards that vision. And now I can create goals. So vision to me is way bigger than the goals. The goals are the markers on the way, but the leader has clarity on the purpose and clarity on the vision, clarity on the values necessary to achieve that, clarity on the rules by which things you will do and not do, the rules of the game. And then finally, constantly looking and checking. It's just like a pilot. They don't fly straight from one destination to another. It's a constant set of corrections based on how the wind is blowing and all of those kind of things.
Totally correct. Totally correct. So let's go back to the very beginning of this. What John Maxwell said is that leadership equals influence. And Solomon said in Psalm 72, be an influencer of influencers, which goes to our next question, because that's what your goal was to write this book, I think. So who is the book for?
Honestly, I started this book thinking that, if nobody read it but my family, it's for them. And as I continue to expand and think about all of these issues, these 4 ideas of these 5 areas of life, and the abundance in each one of those areas would be the goal, and that relationships are actually the most important thing. The book is actually written for anybody who wants to have a life well lived. And that requires that intentionality of leadership. And so it's a fictional story in the book. In the beginning, it's 2 couples in a community and a friend they got. And these couples are of different ages and they want to be successful. And so my definition of success actually is continual progress towards a worthy goal. And the reason that I chose that is because it's not about achieving the goal for me. It's about the pathway and the progress on the way to the goal, as long as I continue to focus on the vision and achieving that particular vision.
Excellent.
And you know what? That changes based on your role in life. So you start out and your parents make sure you go to school and you graduate from high school because they know that you need that education to at least get started in life. Then you go to college and you pick a specific discipline and you say, okay, what's my role? My role is to graduate with a degree in X. And so, and then you meet somebody and your role changes. And so your vision changes. And so you're thinking, well, maybe I'll marry this person. And then you get married and then you have children. And now your role has changed. And so the vision is different because now your responsibility is to take those children from dependent to becoming independent, able to make good decisions on their own, to become high functioning adults. When the kids move out, your role changes, and all of a sudden you're an empty nester. And now what? And what does your vision look like? And so all of those things are incorporated in the stories in the book.
I love it. I love it. So you said earlier that people are perfectly positioned to experience in life what they're currently experiencing. Would you talk to that, please?
Yeah. So I said there was three different areas with that. Number one, it's based on how you think. And one of the things that I've become very clear on personally and have taught for years is that your context, the filter with which you view the world, that context determines what your thoughts are. And your context is made up of what are the truths the things that you believe to be true. What are your attitudes? What are your opinions? And so, it's interesting if you think about a situation where maybe somebody didn't like something that you said, and I'm trying to think of a good example here that wouldn't be political, but it's real easy to look at our politicians, and if we believe that our politicians are all negative and are all crooks, then anything that they say, we're going to receive what you hear from them based on that context, that paradigm, that filter with which we, and then consequently, that's going to form our thoughts. Our thoughts then, so our context, our thoughts then form our feelings. So if we like something, we feel good about it. If we don't like something, we don't feel good about it. Our feelings determine what our actions are going to be. So if I feel good about something, I'll take action on it. If I don't feel good about something, I might not take action on it. But our actions determine our results. When I first got in the real estate business, Mark, my broker said to me, I said, "What do you do?" "I got my license. I'm armed and dangerous. Now what?" And so he said, "Go out and knock doors until you find somebody that wants to sell." And I grew up in a household where our family always had dinner together. And if anybody called on the phone or knocked on the door during dinner time or afterwards in family time, my parents were annoyed. And so my context, my paradigm, my belief was that people don't want somebody knocking on their door. My broker said one day, he says, "I'm going to go out and I'm going to knock on doors and I'm not going to come back until I've got 3 people that want to sell their house, 3 listings." I waited until 10:30 that night and he showed back up at the office with 3 listings in his hand. Changed my paradigm. I go,
that's
okay.
Right. Isn't it true? By the way, I'm not in the real estate business. I'm just an investor, but isn't it true that 1 in 5 people at any given moment want to sell their house? Is that the number? Something like that?
You know what? I hadn't heard that number, but the saying that anybody will sell for the right price. But there's, the average person moves now. I think it used to be every 7 years. I think it's now up to 10 years. And so if you got 100 people in a subdivision, 10 people are going to move every year.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I never looked at it quite that way, but that's it. That's back to the circle. And what you're dealing is all life is a circle. And what you said about family, I meant to comment on way earlier when we were talking, but your personal family, your biological family, but then you got your church family, you got the community family. You and I are Arizonans, so we got an Arizona family, then we got an American family, then we got a world family. All of them are families. And then if you really cut it, we're all part of the family of God. You and I are children of the Most High, sons and daughters. So it's like way cool. So when you read the book, what do you want the people's outcome to be?
The whole idea of life, including 5 areas, it's just a simple framework for how do I view my life. So as I shared with you before, I was so focused on making money and being successful in real estate that, quite frankly, I had my values right, but I had my priorities wrong. And my priority was business to provide for my family and God if I had time. And
I think most people start there.
Yeah, well, I burned out twice in it, and once I actually went into politics, but I burnt out twice, and I knew that I had burnt out twice. When I met Keller Williams, remember they said their mission was to build careers worth having, businesses worth owning, and lives worth living. And so the vision was that they'd be the company of choice. And look, here it is, the largest real estate company in the world. The values were God, family, and business in that order. And they don't tell people who you have to believe or whether you need to be religious or anything. They just know we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so it's that growth spiritually that's important. And as I said, I had the right priorities. I had God, family, and business, but I had them in the wrong order. Business to provide my family and God if I had time. And having realized that I burnt out in the business 2 times, I literally was looking, what can I do besides this? Where can I go? Who would hire me to? And it was terribly frustrating. And when I saw that value, that priority of values, I'm going, that's the right answer. So now I've forgotten the question you asked me. What is that?
Well, no, by the way, if you forgot the question, it was a beautiful thing. And that I've heard you say 3 times now, that lives worth living. It's a line that really, we ought to put that in a question, if you don't mind. Everybody listening and watching ought to ask themselves, what would make my life worth living? What would be the values to make it worth living? What are the principles that make it worth living? What are the philosophies that make? And that's really what you're saying.
That's what I want people to take away.
Yeah, and that they write it down, and that's what we were talking about. Is what are the takeaways that you want from the book? So the people who've read your book, what do they say about it so far?
I've had a few people read the book, and I'm really gratified. One person came to me and said, "This book has changed my life." I'm like, if that was all that happened, that'd be fantastic. I've had another one going, "You've given me a different framework to look at life." And again, those 5 areas make life relatively simple to look to view and say, where do I stand in each one of these areas? And what does abundance look like to me in each one of these areas? So I had coffee with a young man and his dad. And the young man's asked me to mentor him. And I said that I would, and I gave him a copy of the book. He read it, actually sat down, read it in one night, and gave a copy to his dad. So his dad read it. And his dad said to me, he goes, "I'm only on chapter 13, but I can identify myself in both of the couples that you have in the story in this book. And I can see myself in the mistakes and in the good decisions that both of these people have made." That's gratifying.
Totally. I mean, I've felt that a lot with all the books I've written, the big series, Chicken Soup for the Soul, and the 1 Minute Millionaire series, and the Ask.
Right.
So your book starts as featuring imaginary characters, and at the end of the book, you do personal stories and applications. Could you talk to that, please?
Yeah. Well, you and I had the conversation that if all I did was write a how-to book on how to live a great life, somebody might read it, but most people just put it up on a shelf. And so, so you suggested that we make it into a story that people can relate to, and that's what the book is at the beginning, and then at the end, there are stories in my life, being almost 50 years in the real estate business and 73 years on this planet, and ways that I learned what it is that I'm trying to teach and that I'm trying to promote to others on how to lead a life well lived and be intentional in leadership. Remember, I said earlier that I always saw myself as a helper, not a leader. And that was the way I viewed myself. But then understanding that when I know what to do, where to go, and I'm clear on here's what needs to happen, Mark, even when it comes down to helping somebody sell their house, everybody thinks they know all of the answers on how to sell their house, but there's better answers than others. And so if I can influence those people to make better decisions on getting their house sold more quickly, getting it sold for a higher price, that's what I need to do. And I started shifting from thinking, I'm going to help you achieve your goal to sell your house, to no, if you follow my lead, you will get your house sold, it'll sell more quickly, and you'll get a higher price for the house. So that clarity of leadership and influencing other people, again, that wasn't on my radar. I didn't see myself as a leader. And quite frankly, even as Gary Keller was talking to me about leadership and all of that kind of, it probably took a couple of years for it to change my context, my thinking, my paradigm about who I was and what my role was. And then start applying those principles to your life in each one of the areas of life. And all of a sudden, life gets fuller, it's richer. It's never balanced, but it's more balanced because You take the time to pay attention to the different areas and evaluate, get perspective. Where am I now versus where I want to be?
Do you agree that all leadership starts with self-leadership, and all Gary did is hold up a mirror and say, hey, Steve, look in the mirror and see that I mean, you're a magnificent leader. I mean, we've been together at a lot of different meetings, some of which were church meetings. Talk about that. Do you think all leadership starts with self-leadership when you're looking to find, when every person ultimately looks in the mirror?
That's why I wrote the book the way I did, because this whole concept of made for more. I had an older man in my that was part of my life when I was younger, and I remember I was going to go out and volunteer and do things. I served on the town council in Gilbert, Arizona for 6 years, and we were going to go out and just clean up the community. We didn't have a whole lot of money in the budget and everything, so we were just going to pick up stuff alongside of the road. And what he said was, this was his quote to me. He goes, I've done my part. That's for you young guys. And I thought, I hope I never get that small a perspective where I start shrinking my life down to, I don't do that anymore. I don't serve anymore. I already served. I already did that. That quote impacted me a long, long time ago. And so, again, the reason for the book, made for more. I worked for a man who owned a little family paint and wallpaper store, and I framed pictures and sold paint and wallpaper, and his boys worked there too. And they kept saying, Dad, you need to just retire. You need to go up. And Dad loved being there. And so they finally talked him into retiring. And unfortunately, the man died within 6 months.
Yep. If you retire, you expire. There's nowhere in the Bible that says, go thou and retire. You're 55, 65, a millionaire, a cent millionaire, a billionaire, right? I mean, you can't show it to me, I don't think. What happens is you're here to use yourself. My old client, Mary Kay Cosmetics, used to say, I'd rather have wear out Mark than rust out. And she was 83 and going fine and gave away over 1 million pink Cadillacs during her lifetime. That's service.
Right. So, and the interesting thing was that his purpose every day was to come in and serve all of his customers and his clients and the people that would come back that just loved, they loved to shop there because they loved the relationship that they had with him. And so, unfortunately, I think you can't retire, you have to reorient, and it has to be another purpose.
That's Art Littler and I wrote a book called How to Make the Rest of Your Life the Best of Your Life. And Art and I said, don't retire, put on new tires and go in a new, bigger, better direction that's going to be even more fulfilling. Back to your line, living a life worth living. Is there any question I should have been smart enough to ask you that I didn't, that you'd like to make sure that we ask before our little inaugural meeting is done here, Steve?
Well, I can't think of any more questions, but I'm excited to be able to share this, having shared the manuscript with people, having them read it, having them tell me how it's impacted their life and their business. I had one guy, and he's in the insurance business, and so all of these concepts that are being promoted in the book, he's using that in order to impact the culture of his company. So not just to be focused on, hey, you've got a great career, but it's like, does this career actually help you create the life worth living, the abundance that you want to create, because you're intentional about leading your life and achieving more and having that life well lived.
Perfect. What is your website, sir, so people can find you?
It's actually madeformorebook.com. And the 4 is the number 4. So it's madeformorebook.com.
And if they go there, can they buy it straight from you? And will you promise to sign a book?
Absolutely. Be my pleasure.
And once they give their address and everything, they'll probably buy the book on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. But if they want, you would certainly invite them to a seminar at whatever charge is going to be made. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. And so here's what happens. There's a statement that I learned from a lady named Susan Scott, and she wrote a book called Fierce Conversations. And she said that the conversation is the relationship. And so if you remember our math questions, math word questions, the conversation is the relationship. The word is the same in math as equals. So the conversation equals the relationship. So my goal in this is to have deeper and more impactful questions with people about all these big ideas. I don't think I told you where these ideas came from, by the way.
Where did they come from?
So I was teaching a class, and I was teaching how to be successful in real estate. And I had some people that had come to it 2 or 3 times, and they were doing it. They were taking action, and they were making way more than the average real estate agent, and came to me and said, actually, there was one lady named Lori who came to me and said, can you make this conversation bigger? We know what to do to be successful. Can you take it at a bigger level? So I took her challenge and said, and started thinking about what did that look like? What would that be? And so as I was doing my research, I ran into a quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. And of course, she was the first lady of the United States, married to Franklin Roosevelt. And her quote was, great minds talk about ideas. Average minds talk about events. Small minds talk about people. So I was looking and I'm going, okay, these are the great minds. These are the people that are not just thinking about, they're doing, they're taking action. They're achieving it better than the average. These are the great minds. So what would be the ideas that we would talk about? And that's where these 4 ideas of the 5 circles in life and the ideal life being abundance, and that the most important thing is relationships. And again, the conversation equals the relationship. So I want to be able to have conversation with people as they're on this growth path, because even though I've lived 3/4 of a century, I intend to live the next quarter of the century in abundance.
Well, I want to just close with one little idea that I learned long ago. Is, as you know, Crystal, my wife, and I wrote the book Ask.
Yeah.
Our line is, the size of your question determines the size of your result. And our best example is, as you know, I started by training in life insurance 50 years ago, and I met the world's best life insurance salesman. He was on the cover of Forbes and Time and every insurance magazine, Ben Feldman, and the guy outsold 1,500 of the 1,800 life insurance companies, just kicked butt. And I sit with him at lunch after we both got done talking at this seminar in New York City, and Ben said, "Look, Mark, you're earning $100,000 a year." And back then that was big money, and we thought it was. I thought I'd hit the golden bar ring, right? And
I think you did.
Yeah, well, he said, look, 100,000 is 250 work days, $400 a day equals $100,000. He said, you got kids. We've got 5 kids, 6 grandkids. I'm going to show you that all wealth is 1 0. And he said, if your daughter's life depended on it, your oldest daughter, would you be willing to earn 4,000 in one day to save her life? I said, no question. I'd figure out how to do it. He said, then good, do it. Because now 4,000 times 250 workday, that gives you Jewish, Christian, and Kwanzaa, all holidays off. That equals $1 million, 1 0. And I never thought about the question is so simple. The conversation is a relationship, but asking, it creates a conversation that creates a relationship. And it just was so simple. The size of your question determined, all right, so I started making $1 million a year and never have done less sense. So, you know, it adds up after a little bit. You teach compounding, so you know. The point is that every one of us has, back to your whole statement here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hyphenate the word he taught, and that says more. You want to be more, do more, have more. And Steve's teaching you how to do that. Go way out of your way. Get the book today. If you're watching us or listening to us, either write him, and he's giving you the address. He's going to give it to you one more time in a second. Go to Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble. I don't care where you go. Hudson, Books A Million. Get a copy of his book. If you have enough courage to get it straight from him, he will autograph to you, your wife, your kids. You're going to be a happy camper because you're going to start autophilability, which means you're a collector of autographs, and you want to start by collecting Steve's. I promise you he's going to go down in history because this book is going to be well read because it's exceedingly well written, and he is just starting on his journey to speak to everybody and get them all to have peaking life experiences. One more time, your best email, sir.
So the book is madeformore.com or madeformorebook.com. And again, it's the number 4. And my email is steve@chaderteam.com. And that's spelled CHAD as in David, ERTEAM, team, chaderteam.com, steve@chaderteam.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been great privilege of mine to have Steve as a friend and to get to share him with you. And I'm sure you're going to watch more of his stuff online. Blessings on you, Steve. My wife and I and our whole family is cheering on your whole family and you with greater success to more living life fully and wonderfully.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to impact people's lives and help them live the best life they can.
Excellent. Thanks, my friend. Get that book, everybody.